Welcome to a bad video. Lock in. It's October of 2008. The sandwich is barely a month old. Air Blast only got added a couple months ago. These were the caveman times of TF2. This was like 3 years before the third degree was added, so I don't know why anyone was even playing, but anyway. With TF2's map-making scene barely a year old at this point, your average TF2 map was either trying to expand on TF2's existing modes, or seeing just how silly or outlandish of a map you can make with the, at the time, limited tools. But some mappers yearn for more. Control points, CTF, payload, I mean, what is this? Where's the story? Where's the tension? No, for two specific players in the community, these game modes simply weren't epic enough. So on October 13th, 2008, mappers Fearless and Paranoic came out with Slay the Dragon. This hulking mechanical beast majestically flying around right now is the Dragon, and guess what? There's two of them. The objective's simple. Slay the enemy dragon whilst defending your own. This is easier said than done. Breaking through the enemy's defenses will be hard enough, but the dragon itself isn't going to just float there and let you wail on it. While you try to do damage, it retaliates with a hailstorm of bullets by itself. All of this is super impressive for 2008. This was way before VScript, bosses, payload race, even King of the Hill. You gotta understand just how early this is. So I brought on the mapper Zythe, who you might know from, something, to help break down how this was done on a technical level.
So, the core that controls this entire game mode is this little cube right here. A Funk Breakable. Funk Breakables are almost entirely unused in TF2, purely because breakable objects don't mix very well with TF2's gameplay, but they are a leftover from Half-Life 2's code, so we get to use them. This breakable has its health set to 900 specifically.
This approach has some practical issues, however. Unlike the sheer awesome, mind-bending tactile feedback you get when shooting Marasmus in the ass, you don't have any real way to tell that you're actually doing any damage. This doubly sucks because apparently you can only do damage by shooting the dragon's head, and I only found this out through a nearly 2-decade-old FPS banana post.
This is because the Funk Breakable only encompasses the head, so that's the only part of it that can take damage. Breakables don't give you hit markers. The only thing it does is play a sound effect when taking damage that you can't really hear well over the sounds of combat.
The jankiness of it stops mattering the moment you actually manage to slay the dragon. The way it all breaks down and immediately announces your victory is so satisfying.
When the dragon's head then takes enough damage, and the breakable breaks, it sends out 6 outputs. Most of these are visual, but the important one is the round win output. The round win just wins the game for whatever team it's set to. And yeah, it's that simple. Insane that the entire win condition of the game mode hinges on a single obsolete entity left over from Half-Life.
Earlier though, I mentioned that the dragon actually fights back. It shoots any enemies that come close to it. But how?
Well, hidden inside the model is a level 1 sentry gun. The sentry gun object is set to be invincible, but it can still be sapped. And, interestingly, isn't set to have infinite ammo, so it can literally just run out of ammo during some matches. The last important mechanic to mention is that the dragon doesn't just sit there, it flies around. This whole armature of entities are all tied to a Funk track train, following a set of path tracks, the same entities used for trains like Unwell and payload carts. The dragon's collision is managed by a strangely shaped Funk brush, which is why it has so many issues with collision. This is different from how most payload carts track collision, which is via a train watcher entity, which is a lot more consistent and much cleaner solution than the Funk brush that these map traders went with. Oh, also, the dragon's name in the map logic is Fluffy. Just thought I'd mention that.
But these, relatively impressive game mechanics wouldn't really matter if the maps that surrounded them weren't up to snuff. Slay the Dragon as a game mode only had 4 maps dedicated to it on release. We have Extractum and Mystic Ruins, which both came out on October 13th, with Vulcan Pit and Orange Complex coming out a week later on the 19th and 21st respectively. So let's go over each one. First up we have Peak. Extractum is the best showcase of this game mode. It's set up in a way that's both really simple and genius. Both sides of the map have these well laid out arenas that the dragons circle around. There's plenty of elevation and cover, creating these awesome moments where you're trying to push past the enemy's defense, while simultaneously making sure you're taking cover from the dragon's fire. It's a cool arena, plenty of space for engineers and snipers to set up as well, so unless the dragon is completely unattended, defending it is not only doable, but genuinely fun. Then we have kinda my favorite part of the map, the middle. We have these two side tunnels, which are great for trying to get to the other side relatively unnoticed. The middle tunnel is my favorite. It looks kinda hellish at first, but honestly, it only lended itself to some really engaging interactions. And also serves as a really good way to start the round, as you're guaranteed to get into a big scrap right after setup time.
The map's got a bunch of bugs though. There's lots of displacement holes, gaps in the geometry, and other weird perch spots. But it's really old, so we can forgive it on this run.
Next one we have is Mystic Ruins, and unlike the sheer awesomeness that is the Mystic Ruins in Sonic's Big Adventure, this is just... oh god.
This is the only asymmetrical Dragon Slayer map. And it sucks. It's pretty much just an awkwardly shaped death hallway into an open area. It's an absolute meat grinder.
I really wish there was more to say here. The ancient little pillars are kinda cute, but they're placed in such a nothing way that you never really interact with them during play. It's basically just spawn camping Blue in this dark little cave, and by dark, I mean just like, what is going on with the lighting here?
There's also some really strange bullet blocking going on here. All of these rock walls are non-solid, so in some spots, like this corner, you can just shoot through them. The trees have giant cones around them that prevent you from shooting through the leaves, and I get why, but it's just a bit aggressive.
You think that this being the one map where there's only one dragon would make the interactions you have with the dragon more unique, but it's kind of the opposite. The dragon never comes into play because good luck caring about him while you're in this hellish trench. It's just not good. And that's a shame. Then we have Orange Complex, but don't let the name fool you. It's actually quite simple. This is still orange though. This time, the two dragons are separated by some wide open bridges, which is where most of the fighting happens. This is where the map's vertical nature really comes into play, as you're constantly struggling not to fall into the acid pits below while you're on the high ground. And you have to really fight to reach the top while you're on the low ground, especially since you spawn there. While the fights on mid are awesome, in the end, you're going to be extremely battered by the time you actually reach the dragon, and things don't get any better from there.
That's because the Dragon Zone is a large flat open space. Not really what you want. If you're alone, there's no way to take cover from the dragon's hit scan, except if you stand in the open and outrange it, or if it's on the far side of the platform. That makes fighting in this area just feel really bad.
That's not even mentioning the Gigantamax sightline that spans from one base to another.
Even despite that though, this map still has cover, flanks, and pickups to work with, so overall it's not that bad. It also has the most verticality, which is interesting in its own right, but doesn't necessarily make it any better or worse.
It's fun. There's never really a dull moment while playing this map, even when it does drag on. And eventually, taking down the dragon in that big open area surrounded by acid, it's a unique feeling, that's for sure. Then, seemingly the final map released during this game mode's short time in the limelight is Vulcan Pit. The hellish environment of this map is really on brand, because you'll definitely feel like you're in hell while you're playing it. Well, kinda. The map has these massive pools of red water, which looked more like Kool-Aid to me, so I immediately jumped in without thinking, and yeah, the water kills you. This is the quickest path to the enemy dragon, and it's really treacherous. From tight shores you have to tiptoe around, the massive sightline, not to mention everyone on the enemy team desperately trying to push you into the water regardless. It's not easy.
If you want another route, the only flank on the map takes 200 years to walk through. It's literally 4,600 hammer units long, and just funnels you back into the same area, creating a tight choke in front of the enemy spawn that you have to pass through, between a rock and retaining wall. Then, the actual Dragon Zone also has very little cover. The main platform is entirely flat, and the only way to approach it is via two really narrow walkways, above another death pit. The area has this wall at the back as cover, from the dragon and sentries, but it only really gets you stuck back there without being able to attack the dragon.
See, my genius gambit here was to sneak past the enemy as spy, then while the dragon's undefended, I could just sap it and win the game unopposed. This was easier said than done. My 5'8" frame was simply no match for just how high up the dragon was, culminating in the most embarrassing moment of my TF2 career. Just, come on, man. And that was seemingly it. Those were the 4 maps released for the Dragon Slayer game mode. A lot of the discussion surrounding this mode is completely lost to us now. This game mode even had an official website, but it's been long defunct and unarchived. We can gauge the general consensus though through the surviving FPS Banana comments, and people generally liked it. For a small window of time, there were actually 24/7 Dragon Slayer servers up and running. Dragon Slayer burst onto TF2's server scene, but it fizzled out just as quick. There's a couple reasons for this. There's the fact that the game mode just wasn't as intuitive as everything else that was out at that time. Unless you specifically had people on the server telling you that the dragon only takes damage to the head, you, as the average player, would have no way of knowing that, and would ultimately end up with a sour experience. There's also the issue of map variety. There were only 2 truly good Dragon Slayer maps, and even then, Dragon Slayer at its best wasn't really all that better from the other selection players had at the time. More novel and unique, sure, but that doesn't really make people stick around. And just like that, Dragon Slayer as a mode died, leaving behind its ambitious legacy. Or did it? 16 years after Dragon Slayer's initial release, TF2 mapper Cass took it upon herself to create a brand new map under this mode. This is DS_women. But this wasn't only a new map, it was a refurbishing of the ancient game mode logic that Slayer was working under as well. Added were health bars for each dragon, which actually finally allows you to keep track of the match and how much damage you're doing. The dragon also has a square outline surrounding its head, making it a little more clear to players where they should be shooting. A seemingly small but substantial change is the fact that you can see the dragon at all times through walls, making it a lot easier to navigate the map and plan your next move.
Overall, while it does a lot of things better, the layout feels a bit mazy. A lot of the layout is spent in winding rooms and hallways until you reach mid's 4 entrances, and the Dragon Zone, being located in front of spawn, makes the map both longer and harder.
It's an alright map, and the Yuri present in the map is pretty awesome. While I'm more into bearded, middle-aged, failed fathers, I can also admit that girls are cool too. Ultimately though, Women wasn't the map that truly made Dragon Slayer too much better than it was, which is fine. For a proof of concept, a project made purely for fun, there's a lot of interesting game design lessons that can be gleaned from it. Lessons I'm too stupid to understand or explain. Sorry. When I first heard about Dragon Slayer as a concept, my mind was blown. I thought it genuinely had a lot of potential as a game mode. After playing these maps though, I feel like said potential was just barely tapped. I think that with the incredible mapping skills that people have now, someone could genuinely take Dragon Slayer and expand it into a brand new, fully functioning, fully awesome TF2 game mode. I mean, it's not like taking janky community game modes and making them actually awesome is something that mappers haven't done already. But at that point, would it really be the same Dragon Slayer anymore? As it stands now, I think Dragon Slayer is a great testament to just how far TF2 mapping, by extension, TF2 itself, has come. Dragon Slayer isn't just some failed experiment from a bygone era. It's a building block, a part of a lengthy, nearly 20-year-long lineage of TF2 mapping, and I think that's beautiful. But also, maybe we don't have to close the book on Dragon Slayer just yet. Maybe we can allow Fluffy here to soar through the skies once again. If you want to play some actual full rounds of Dragon Slayer, as well as participate in the other frequent map events that are just as crazy as this, join the Swishcast Discord in the description. It's this TF2 community I run with my friends, completely out of pocket, where every week we schedule game nights on maps that range from unique, forgotten, or just plain silly. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, we'd love to have you. And I guess that's it. Before I go, I want to extend a huge thanks to Katsu, the TF2 map collector. I wouldn't have even found out about Dragon Slayer if she didn't suggest I take a look at it, so I really appreciate that. A thank you to Zyth for taking the time to pop open the hood of these maps to find out how they really work. And a huge thanks to my bestie Azel for capturing this awesome drone footage that played throughout the video. My name's Indy, and I hope you stick around.